Amber from Fueling the Temple. I've been getting a lot of questions lately about how I can meal plan for a month at a time. And so I just wanted to take some time out today, give a little bit of background about how I started doing it, and give you some tips and tools that will enable you to be able to do it as well. So I started meal planning a long time ago just because that's how my brain is wired, to have things organized. And I got tired of doing it every week. And I got tired of going grocery shopping every week. And so as I had more kids, so I have three boys. They're currently 8, 5, and 3. And the idea of bringing all of them out to the grocery store just started to become an overwhelming thing for me. And so rather than either try to sneak in grocery shopping each week, I started meal planning and such for 2 weeks at a time. My husband was active duty Air Force, and he worked on the base that was about an hour away from where we lived. And some of the prices and such were better at the commissary. So I would drive over to the base to get stuff. And so I didn't want to make that drive all the time either. So then I started thinking about ways that I could buy things that didn't have to be kept in the refrigerator and stuff like that, shelf sustainable things for the whole month. So then all I had to do was buy local produce in between the times that I was going to the grocery store. And so then that kind of developed into a pattern and a rhythm where I would start thinking about meals for the whole month. And then I would write down the things that I would buy now and have in my cupboard so that then I didn't have to go to the store and get them. And then things that I would buy each week, because we go through enough fruits and vegetables that I pretty much have to buy them every week. Sometimes it can be stretched a little bit further depending on what the produce is. In the summer, it's different now that we live in Maine. A lot of that comes from our garden too, so it's a little bit different. But that's kind of how it all got started. And now, as a family of 5, it's easier to do it this way. There's less thought that goes into it. And I fell in love with my crock pot. I got one that I really, really loved, and I use it absolutely all the time. It makes my life so much easier. And I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I'm a stay-at-home working mom because I'm a personal trainer. I'm a group fitness instructor, and I also run Fueling the Temple. So I primarily stay home with my kids, but at the same time, I'm very busy and I have a busy schedule. I have kids. I mean, my oldest is in school, so even picking him up and bringing him to school and from school, all that keeps me busy. So I tried to come up with ways that I didn't have to be in the kitchen all the time, but that my family could still eat nutritious and good food regularly. And so that's where I started playing around with recipes and started freezing things, putting things in the crock pot. A lot of the stuff that I do is freezer meals. A lot of stuff is crock pot freezer meals as well. And it just kind of takes out some of the thought in it when I do it for a month at a time. So now that you know a little bit about how I started and why I started doing it, another thing about my family and I is that we choose to eat the majority of our foods as clean, some people would call it, minimally processed foods, things that don't have preservatives and additives in it. We don't always choose organic. If the price point is there, then yes, I'll choose organic over regular, but we're not married to it. We also get a lot of stuff. As I said, we now live in Maine, so we often will also get things from local farmers as well, and we'll grow some things ourselves, and whether we eat it from our garden or we freeze it. I haven't gotten into canning yet, but I hope to this next year. So we try to do the best that we can. We also have chickens, so we get our eggs here at our house too. But we try to stick with that. We do eat meat, and obviously we eat eggs because we have chickens, but we are not a meat-strong family. We don't always have meat in all of our meals. We are more of a plant-strong type of family where we're eating a lot of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, things like that. And we were plant-based for a while, a number of years. We did it, and it didn't seem to work for our family. It something that I enjoy. I love. My body feels best when I do it, but it doesn't work for everybody in our family. And so that's where a lot of our meals are still based off from vegetables and whole grains. But at the same time, we do eat meat. It's just not the main component of a lot of our meals. So now that you know that, we're also going to kind of walk through the process of what meal planning and meal prep looks like for us. So the very first thing that I do, so we're at the end of April now, May is coming. So at the end of the month, I'll typically sit down and I will look at our calendar for the month. So I have this handy dandy little planner and I write down all of our different things that are coming up, my work schedule, things like that in my planner, so that then I know the nights that I'm working, when those are going to be times that we have early mornings, if I'm going right to a class or a meeting with a client, if we have after school events, if my son has sports, things like that is all written down in our planner, so that then I can go based off from that and figure out, am I going to be in the house to cook food, or does it have to be in the crock pot? Are there events coming up? Are there things that we need to plan for? So that's the very first step. Look at the whole month and figure out where those special occasions are, if there's a birthday, if you're busy certain days, all those things, mark them out on your calendar first, because that's going to be the baseline of where you're placing your meals and what you're cooking when. So next, the very next thing that I do is I take a lined piece of paper, a simple lined piece of paper that looks like this, okay? Lined piece of paper. All I do is I take that piece of paper and I mark off one row for each day of the month. So you can see my numbers over on this side. This is from April, so it's a little bit different because we're in Boston, so you can see there's some blank spaces where we had continental breakfast, and we had, I used my crock pot a lot in the hotel room. But so I marked down those days. And then if you notice, there's only 2 columns on my page. You have breakfast and you have dinner. I do not do lunch, okay? And the reasoning for that is that the majority of our lunches are either fresh fruits and vegetables with hummus or peanut butter. Sometimes we will do sandwiches. Sometimes it's salads. For me, it's usually a leafy green with some proteins and stuff like that in it. It's pretty basic, or leftovers. So we don't really attribute and write down lunches. Gives us that flexibility. But breakfast and dinner, there's always some form of a plan, even if it's leftovers as the plan. So write down your numbers. Know that you're going to have 2 columns, breakfast and lunch. 2 columns. And then the next thing that I do is I start going through, everybody has tried and true recipes that you know your family eats, you know your family likes, things that you come back to. And so I will mark down some of those automatically, but if not, then I'll start going through, some of my cookbooks. And some of these, let's be honest, the majority of them I don't actually follow to a T. I'm not a recipe follower, and that's why you'll find that I make a lot of my own recipes over on the blog, because like this one, has some great ideas in it. It's all meals that can be frozen, but they use like condensed soups and things like that I'm not going to use in my recipes. And they use a lot of dairy, not that dairy's bad, but very heavily in these. So I'll just take these and I'll alter them. And if you notice, I have all these stickies because then I write all my notes on how I altered the recipes, because I used to alter the recipes and not write it down, and then not remember what I changed for the next time that I did it. Some of them, the Happy Herbivore. Thanks, Melissa. I still use this one a lot. I will follow a lot of these ones. to a T. But again, this is another one that I really like, the Slow Cooker cookbook. This came from my grandmother, but once again, there's some recipes that I will follow, but the majority of them I really alter, so that then it kind of fits more along the guidelines of things that we're going to eat and I'm comfortable with. So if you ever wonder where a lot of my recipes come from, it's things that I've tried over and over again, and I've altered so much that I've then created my own recipes. So a lot of that is what you'll find over on our blog for our recipes. Okay, so I go through those, and I go through Pinterest too. So you'll notice if you go to my Pinterest page, there's lots of different categories, different things on there. I have some clean eating boards that I'll use even with clients in like small groups and virtual training, stuff like that. I try to keep track of a lot of those because it makes it easier when you're going to make those recipes than searching for it and saying, where did I put that? I don't remember which recipe I followed. Now I have all the ingredients and I don't have the recipe. So the easiest way to keep track of that is when you are making your list on your piece of paper. Here, if you write down where you found it from. So if I got a recipe from this book, then I would make an indication on my paper what page number from the book that I got it from. If it's from Pinterest, then I make a specific board for that month and pin it to that board on the month so that then it's all in one place and I'm not searching everywhere for it. So there's so many recipes, so many different things, so many different ideas. So how do you plan what day you're going to do what recipe? Okay, this is where the majority of the work of the planning comes into play, and you might get stuck. Because let's be honest, filling out a whole month worth of meals can be really intimidating. So the best tip that I have for you on that is categorize your days. It doesn't always have to be the same. It can be different each month. That's up to you how you do it. But if you say, like us, we do Friday night pizza night, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart. We started it back years ago when we only had one kid and I was still in school. And it was a way to wind down, relax, spend time together as a family. And my son got to pick the toppings. And we still try to do that most of the time. I've gotten kind of crazy in some of my ideas. We'll do like a sweet potato pizza with goat cheese and things like that. So it's not always traditional pizza, but we do Friday night pizza night. And sometimes it's a breakfast pizza. It doesn't have to be sauce and cheese. Okay. There's all kinds of different options out there. We've also done it with hummus before instead of cheese. So explore, find some options. But Friday night is always pizza night. That's just kind of what we do, how we do it. Sometimes it's with family, sometimes it's by ourselves. So that's one day. Tuesdays, Taco Tuesday. But who wants to eat tacos every single Tuesday? I mean, some people would. I probably would. But I vary what it is. So maybe, okay, say you have 4 Tuesdays in the month, and 2 of those Tuesdays you're going to do ground turkey with some taco seasoning in it. Okay, then you can double batch those and you can freeze one for later. So then it's already made, but you're not eating it 2 weeks in a row. And then the other 2 weeks, maybe you make salsa chicken. So like this past month, we had turkey tacos, we had an enchilada bake, we had salsa chicken. So then it kind of gives you like a category to go off from, so then you're not just kind of shooting in the dark. So that's another one. Sometimes my category that I go off from is, okay, I'm working that night or teaching a class or have a client, so it has to be a crock pot meal because I know that I'm not going to have time in the kitchen to do it. And so then sometimes, like even on Pinterest, I have my crock pot board. So if I know that I'm training a client for the next 8 weeks on Thursday nights, then I will make sure that for those 2 months, every Thursday night, I have a crock pot meal. So sometimes it's not necessarily a food category like Italian food or Mexican food. Sometimes it's, okay, it has to be a crock pot meal. So come up with different categories to fill in those spaces so that then it gives you a little bit of direction in that. Or maybe it's Meatless Mondays. Maybe that's kind of the category that you want to go with. Find different things for different days, and it'll make it easier to fill in those blanks on your sheet of paper. So organization is my thing when it comes to meal planning. So not only do I write down breakfast and dinner, and that's the dinners that I do that with. Breakfast, again, sometimes it's easy things. So 9 times out of 10 right now, I'm teaching or with a client in the morning. So my attention is kind of on other things. So it needs to be something quick. So it's either something that I've made ahead of time and frozen, or it's breakfast in the crock pot. I am not a fan of a lot of cereals, so we'll do oatmeal in the crock pot a lot, or I'll make muffins ahead of time and freeze them, things like that. I also will make like English muffins with egg and cheese and greens and stuff. I'll make them ahead of time and freeze those. And then more on the weekends, I'll have a little bit more time where maybe, we'll make some whole wheat pancakes or scones. I love my 2-ingredient scones. Love them, love them, love them. If you haven't tried them yet, you need to. Those things are more things that I do on the weekend than during the week, just because I get up early, but I have a lot of things that I like to do in that time before my kids get up that I would rather be spending it in the Word, in my Bible, or if I have a class that I'm teaching that morning, I'll then plan my class. I'll start getting Gideon's lunch packed, things like that. So rather than spending all of that time making breakfast, I usually have it prepped the night before. So that was my little tangent. So after you've written down, or as you write them down, the other thing that I do to categorize the breakfasts and the dinners that I'm making is not only where they're coming from, but if they are freezer friendly. So if it's something that I can make and I can put in the freezer, then, I don't know if you can see this, then I mark it off with an F. I don't know if it's, over on this side. So if you see that it has an F next to it because it's freezer friendly, you'll also notice that some of these have C's next to them. A lot of the F's have C's next to them, and that's because it also goes in the crock pot. So I'll mark off if it's something that can be frozen ahead of time, and if it's something that can go in the crock pot or not, or if it simply can just go in the crock pot, but it shouldn't be frozen ahead of time. I make all of those markings and indications on this one piece of paper so that then it's easier to follow. And you will notice that some of these do have arrows because we switched some days around. So the good thing about this is that even if you come up with a set schedule for the entire month, it does not mean that you have to stick to it to a T. Say that something comes up and you're out of the house or somebody wants something different. You can switch around those days if you want to because you already have it done ahead of time and you've already prepped for it. Okay, so the hard stuff is done. You've made your list. You know what your family is eating when. What's the next step? You got to go shopping. Okay. So again, I will typically try to get all of the things that I need to freeze all of the meals or have all the shelf stable things that I need for them at the beginning of the month. Okay. Once you know that you are going shopping, if you take your list and I'll link the PDF to this video as well. I usually save myself a little bit of time that as I'm writing out my list, I write down the ingredients of things that I need. I'll have shelf stable things. I'll have vegetables and fruit, dairy, all of that on one sheet of paper so that then as I'm going through and writing down these recipes, I'm then also writing down the ingredients of things that I need to buy. And if I notice that there's some things in my pantry or in my freezer that I haven't used that really needs to get used, then I'll make sure that I base some of the recipes for that next month off from those things. Say that I have a whole bunch of beans or legumes or something like that that I just kind of want to get used, then I'll make sure that I'll search for some of those recipes. Maybe I have some lentils that have been left over for a while, or I have a ton of tomatoes in my freezer. Then I'll kind of look for those recipes to fit those things, so that then it saves us money and we're eating the things that we have. Okay, so once you have your list, your grocery shopping list all set in your categories, you go to the store, you do your shopping, you come home. Now the fun begins, right? So now that you've marked off on your sheet all of your freezer and crockpot friendly meals, now what you do is you go ahead and you take your freezer bags. I use Glad freezer bags, and I know that they're not the best. I do. But I have not come up with a better solution for a lot of that because I looked into buying other ones that I could reuse, and they're really expensive. And a Sharpie. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go through your list and you're going to write on all of your Ziploc baggies what the recipe is. Say it's, I don't know, Greek chicken. Say it's Greek chicken. Okay, you're going to write Greek chicken as your label, and then underneath that you're going to write the directions on the bag. If there's any ingredients of things that you need to add after or before the cooking time, all of that stuff gets written out right on the bag so that then there's no question as to what's in the bag or what do you do with the bag. Because sometimes, you'll move on and you'll be like, oh, well, I don't remember if I added all the ingredients, or maybe you forgot one thing at the store. I've done that before too. So then I'll just write on the bag and make a note on my list that I'll have to buy a can of diced tomatoes or whatever it may be. So get your bags set, label them, mark them. Next step, if you go through and you figure out exactly what you need, so say that you have 5 different recipes that call for diced onions. So go ahead and dice all of the onions for all those recipes, put them in all the bags. If you have multiple recipes that call for diced carrots, dice those carrots, put them in the bags. If you have a food processor that does slicing and dicing and stuff like that, you can use that. There's all kinds of different methods for that. So what you're doing is you are preparing all of these meals at once. And I usually will do this on a different day than when I go grocery shopping. Or I'll make sure that I start grocery shopping first thing in the morning and then have time later on that day. Again, you can do this for a shorter amount of time. Say you want to do it for 2 weeks or 1 week even. And then from there you can decide, okay, maybe I want to do 3 weeks. Maybe I want to do 4 weeks. We don't have enough freezer space. I'd love to get a deep freezer, but we don't have one right now. So I can only do a month because I can't fit any more food in our house. So kind of take that into consideration. So now you've chopped everything up. You've made all of your recipes. You've put everything in your bags. They're all labeled. You seal it shut. I lay mine flat in the freezer. This kind of depends on the freezer space that you have. So ours, it's one of the pull-out drawers under the bottom. And so it's easier to stack them flat, have them freeze, and then either I can stand them upright and have them all in a row so that I'm not constantly digging through everything. And typically we'll have about 15 to 17 meals in our freezer at a time, because sometimes those recipes can't be frozen, or sometimes so if I make a whole chicken in the crock pot, I will have that chicken in the freezer, but then I'll put a recipe the next day or 2 days after that uses the leftovers from that in something. So sometimes those things can't be made ahead of time. Also, Saturdays are typically a leftover day in our house. If there's any leftovers, then we eat them Saturday so that then I don't have to cook dinner. And it gets rid of all of our food waste. So there's not a lot of food that goes bad in our house because we typically eat all of it. And that's part of this as well, is that finding a budget that works for you, not throwing away your food. All these things help us to be financially responsible. They help our family to eat well. There's so many different components to all of this, and it can be confusing and daunting and overwhelming, but it's worth it. I promise. It is. And if your brain doesn't work like mine, it's okay. If you don't need to meal plan for a month, that's okay. But for some of us, it works. And it's one of those things that until you try it, maybe you won't know that it'll work for you or not. Okay? So after you've filled all the bags, everything is done, everything is ready, then you take this beautiful list and you put it up on your fridge or somewhere safe where you know where it is and nobody's going to be scribbling on it, because that's happened to me before. Sometimes I'll take a picture of it, so then I have it. And then you have your whole month planned. So I'll give you a couple of names of different recipes of things that are on my list from April. But other than that, that's pretty much the basics of it. Okay, so some of the breakfast ideas that we had in April, we had blueberry muffins, we had the egg English muffins that I told you about, apple wraps or peanut butter wraps. We take a whole wheat tortilla with peanut butter, whatever fruit, whether it's apples or bananas, maybe some raisins, granola, wrap it up. That's breakfast. Pancakes, my 2-ingredient scones, oatmeal. We do lots of oatmeal with different things in the crock pot. So I do have some of those recipes on my blog too. I have an apple and raisin and cinnamon one, I think, pear and cranberry. And I think my carrot one is on there as well. Egg scrambles. We love to do egg scrambles. Greens with Trader Joe's, everything but the bagel seasoning, and soft boiled eggs. Absolutely love it. Pumpkin custard in the crock pot is another favorite of mine. The kids love it too. And potato and egg casserole, like in the crock pot. Love that. Absolutely love it. Okay, so those are some breakfast ideas. Some dinner ideas. Enchilada bake in the crock pot. Amazing. Unfried rice in the crock pot. Veggie pasta. So we make a lot of our own pasta sauce in the crock pot. I know some of these are on the website already too. Turkey tacos. Let's see, what else do we have here? Broccoli frittata, Italian wedding soup, Greek chicken. Our lentil salad bowls that one's on the website as well. So just some ideas of some different things that we do. So to summarize, look at your calendar, figure out everything that's coming up that month. Mark down your days on a piece of paper. Fill it with your breakfast and your dinner ideas. Mark off on those things, whether they are frozen or crock pot friendly. Decide on a theme for the days so that you have those as you write your recipes. Makes it a whole lot easier. As you do it, make your grocery list. Go to the store and get what you need. Come home. Make all of your freezer meals, freeze them, and you're done. Simple-ish. If you do have questions or comments, please let me know. I would love to help you in this process. So I hope that you at least try it, even if it's for a week. Give it a go. And if you have questions as you do it, feel free to reach out to me. I hope you've enjoyed and I hope you've learned something today. Have a great day.